Hey there. Oh, it's so cold out today. we've had that major ice storm and everything is just frozen. Not usual for North Carolina. But I love being outside in the cold and the snow in the woods. It just makes me so happy. It just feels so fresh. Drinking tea. It's a jasmine green tea from Smith Tea Makers, and it is so good. It is so delicious. I'm really enjoying it. They have another one that I drink before I go to bed called Meadow, and they're just the best teas. Well, welcome to Crunchy Anarchy. My name is Stevie Lynn. Today I'm going to be sharing my story of going to see the Buddhist monks who are doing the peace walk. I saw them in Greensboro, and that's in North Carolina, at this fancy resort. There was a lot of irony in this experience, a lot of irony and juxtaposition, which I'll share with you. It was amazing, and it was enlightening. And I went with a friend for my Quaker meeting, and we really had the best time. It was a cold night too, and they were giving their visitation after they already walked. So we didn't get to see them walking. They had already walked like 26 miles that day. I'm not really sure, but at least 20 miles that day. And like I said, it was really cold and for North Carolina. So when we were there, it was probably about 25 degrees, I guess. I think. And then they had visitation from like 6 to 9. These are hardworking people. These are really hardworking, dedicated people. The visitation was occurring at this resort called the Grandover Resort, which seems like I think it's catered to people who want to play golf. And Kara and I got there, and we had to park like a mile away. And the funny thing is we had to walk through this neighborhood that was incredibly posh. In fact, when we drove into it, for miles, there was just really like fancy house after fancy house. Like I would point to one house and I would say, that looks like a Hogwarts house, or she would point to another one and she would say, that's the Silver Spoon's house, or this is the Home Alone house. I mean, that's the kind of neighborhood it was in. Just like the fanciest houses. So we thought, we wondered what it must have felt like for them to walk through this neighborhood. Just the juxtaposition of their lives versus the lives reflected in the suburban neighborhood. So that was on our minds when we were walking up the hill to the resort. And then we walked across the golf course to get to the resort. And the resort just looked incredibly like regal. Like there was torches everywhere, big golf course. You could see like chandeliers through the windows. Just like super fancy. So we get there and there's already a crowd amassed. Like it's a big crowd and we can barely see the monks. And I'm sorry, I really didn't get any footage for this because I couldn't. I could have, but at the point that I could have, it just didn't seem appropriate anymore, if you catch my drift. So we were behind this big crowd, and I had my phone up like way high, trying to find, who the people who were on stage. The monk wasn't talking yet. I'm not sure who was talking, but he wasn't talking yet. And finally, the mayor came up and introduced the monk, and the monk started talking, and I still couldn't see him. I could only see him through other people's phones, like through their viewfinders. That was the only way I could see them, which was so ironic because he started talking about how while they were walking, doing the peace walk, they they noticed that everybody was filming them and seeing them only through their phones. And he called phones lovers, which Kara and I were trying to figure out at first, because he had a little bit of an accent, and we were like, is he really saying lovers or lovers, or I'm not really sure. But we assessed that he truly was saying lovers, and it does make sense. So he was just, he was mentioning, he was just he made that observation that a lot of people were watching him through their lovers. And at that point, I knew I couldn't film them anymore because it just seemed inappropriate. I'm assuming you already know about the Peace Walk. It seems like everybody knows. They started off in Texas and they're heading to DC. I can't remember all the miles that they're walking, but they walk like 20 to 30 miles every day. They have a dog with them named Aloka, and they are doing this for peace, and they're connecting with people. They're doing talks wherever they go. They have meet and greets and visitations. And I believe they were walking with the premise of basically the Gospel of Luke 9:3, take nothing for the journey, no staff, no bag, no bread, no money, and do not have two tunics. I'm not saying they didn't have bags. I'm not sure if they had money, but I think people provided for them. I think when Aloka, the dog, became injured, I think the vets, or I think people provided for them. I would go on Facebook and people would ask, can we take care of this? So it seemed like they, left with that idea in mind. Which is a very peaceful idea, that you'll be provided for, and people love them. They're bringing so much happiness and hope. They just have this charism that is absolutely amazing. So they did mention at the beginning of their talk that they had traveled, that the last 10 miles of their journey in Greensboro was just wall to wall people. They were like, where are you getting all these people from, North Carolina? I think it's just wonderful. Now, there was something really odd, like when we were in the crowd, is that there were a lot of people leaving, and we were able to get closer and closer, and we couldn't figure it out. Like there was like literally a river of people constantly leaving, and they were just saying, we're going. And I don't know why. Like, I don't know why, why people weren't staying for the message. I don't know what was, I don't know. I don't know what was on their mind. I mean, maybe they just wanted to see a monk. I don't know. But it baffled both me and Kara. And the message was really good. Like the message was about attention, which is, it's my jam. My jam is attention. Attention is prayer. Give life your attention. Give people your attention. So they were speaking to the choir, and they were talking about, how maybe you shouldn't go to the bathroom with your lover, your phone, which just cracked us up. Like, you just do one thing, do number one and do number two, and don't do it with your lover. It was so funny. They were so funny. So that was one of their messages, is just be attentive to everything that you do, and don't be distracted all the time. Give your focus. And they also talked about training your brain. And they used Aloka, the dog, as an example. Like he said that when Aloka gets out of control and wants to chase a bunny or wants to chase a deer or something, he has to tell Aloka to sit down and stay. Like, don't do that. And he has to retrain Aloka every time it's like a new animal. But, it's not enough to just train him not to chase bunnies, because deer is a new kind of creature, and it creates a new reaction. So he said that we have to do that with our brains too. We have to tell our brains to sit and stay. And we need to train our brains through breath work. So he was teaching us how to breathe, which is really nice. Well, first of all, he had us put our hands on our heart, and it was really the left hand on the heart, and then the right hand over. And we just sat there for a long time trying to listen to our hearts. But remember, it was cold and we were all padded up. So I couldn't find my heart. but I pretended it was there. And I did my own little meditation, kind of pretending that it was joined with all the other hearts around me. Because I don't know what, I wasn't really sure at that point what he was saying. We hadn't moved in front enough to really hear him. So I just kind of added to the story, and like I envisioned my heart joining everybody's heart and just all of us being one big heart beating together. And we did this for a good few minutes. And then he started talking about breathing, and that whenever you start getting distracted, when you lose focus or when you get mad or whatever it is, you need to take your mind and tell it to sit and stay. And the way that you do that is through breathing. So we did all this breath work. And it felt so good because I don't like crowds and I was feeling a little agoraphobic, but that breathing felt so nice, and breathing together with all those people felt like a trust situation, like we were breathing as one unit. It just took all my anxiety away. And also, the air was cold, and it was just like drinking ice cold water on the hottest day. It just felt so good to breathe in that cold, fresh air with all of those people. Like it was so lovely. I really enjoyed it. And so I had a couple thoughts about it. The first thought was the irony of it all. The posh neighborhood, all the luxury, and them walking for 10 hours a day and eating the bare minimum and not sleeping in the hotel, mind you, but sleeping on the grounds. They were always camping out. And just that contrast between their life and what they were walking through, and how they were talking about trying to help people to focus in a crowd that really was really resisting focusing. So many people were just leaving. So many people had their phones up, even though they were talking about, phones being their lovers and people seeing the world through their phones. They still continued to do it. People were talking. People weren't focusing. There were a lot of people who were just not focusing. And it just made me think about that uphill battle that they are on. I bet they don't really see it as a battle, but like in my mind, I'm like, yeah, they're going against the stream. And yet they have so much faith. They have faith because it's necessary. I mean, I'm imposing my own thoughts on them. Yeah, peace is necessary. We got to make it happen. They have faith because it's necessary, but they also really believe in it. They believe it can work. And like my approach to peace is always like, love your neighbor. Just love your neighbor. And love is a verb. And their approach is, you got to fix yourself first. You got to fix your head. You have to tend to your own nervous system and to your mind that is unable to focus. And you need to work that out first. Because once you work that out, you have a lot of control. You have a lot of control over your interactions with other people. And you can choose interactions that either create an opportunity for, I don't want to say war, but harm or kind of violence in a way, or create an opportunity for peace. I don't know if George Fox actually said this, and I'm going to paraphrase it. Live your life in a way that doesn't create any occasion for war. And that, I believe, is in our, just day-to-day interactions. We can choose contention. We can choose an interaction that preserves our ego but causes friction. We can choose to call people names, or we can choose to speak in a way that is more love-driven. I'm not going to go into my my beliefs, because this is about the monks. But those were the two things that I really noticed. And so they talked for about I think an hour or so, and then we went and got some tea and French fries, which was like the best. It was like the best tea ever. It was like this just lemon ginger tea. It was just a normal tea, like stash tea. But because of that experience, it was the best tea ever. It was just that contrast of being out in the cold and then getting that warm tea. It made the tea so delicious. Just like the contrast between that posh neighborhood and the humbleness of the monks, and the lack of attention versus the great attention of the monks, all of it, that just the whole juxtaposition. But that's it, really. I just wanted to share my story, and like in case, you haven't been able to see the monks yourself, if they haven't been in your state. I feel so blessed, though. That was a really fun experience. I wish I went out to see them on the road. We had this big old storm. Well, it wasn't really huge here in North Carolina, but the country had a big storm come through, and the monks were out there the next day walking in the very, very cold, icy, snowy, not snowy, but snowed on roads. Okay, well, that's it. Thank you for hanging out with me for a little bit, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.